According to Russia, the Council of Europe is lying about Ukraine. Ukraine's economy will collapse because of massive layoffs, and President Zelensky wants foreign troops in Ukraine. Disinformation never stops, and neither do we. Welcome to StopFake, the place where we expose fakes about Ukraine and the outlets that generate them. So let's get to it. Anti-Russian policy relapse. That's how Russian media reacted to the Council of Europe Parliamentary Assembly Resolution 2352 on the progress of the Assembly's 2019 monitoring procedure. Russian officials and their subordinate media were particularly incensed by the fact that the Council of Europe reminded Moscow once again to end its occupation of Ukraine's Crimea and eastern Donbas regions. Russian officials called the PACE resolution, that's the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, boorish and deceitful, and insisted that Russia has nothing to do with the violations described in the resolution. Council of Europe Resolution 2352 is essentially a summary of conclusions pertaining to countries monitored by PACE. The resolution criticizes Russia's anti-democratic actions, both domestically and in relation to other countries, and contains a number of demands from Russia, among them, to end the illegal occupation of Ukraine's Crimean Peninsula. That was the particular item that provoked special indignation and the wrath of Russian officials, because Russia stubbornly continues to promote the fake narrative that the peninsula is primordially Russia and that it voluntarily joined Russia, despite the fact that the United Nations General Assembly officially recognized Russia as an occupying country. Back in 2014, there were even protests in Russia against the Kremlin's invasion and occupation of Crimea. The typical response from the Kremlin's industrial lying machine to political statements like this is to call them anti-Russian or Russophobic policy. Putin went so far as to equate Russophobia with anti-Semitism in an effort to build up international sympathy for Russia. And this narrative is something the Kremlin plans to continue to employ. Now, the mention of the Minsk agreements in the resolution brought on particular fury among Russian officials, some of whom hastened to call it ridiculous. The Kremlin faithful online outlet Ukraina.ru wrote, quote, "The person who wrote these claims is clearly not himself, or he is a liar. Russia can't carry out the Minsk Accords because it is not a party to the conflict, but a guarantor, like France or Germany." The narrative that Russia is supposedly not a party to the conflict and not a party to the Minsk Agreement remain the most popular Russian propaganda narratives, together with the narrative about the reunification of Crimea with Russia. Now you can add to that list Russophobia. The Kremlin is constantly denying its aggression against Ukraine, despite the large array of documents confirming Russia's involvement in Ukraine's internal affairs. Meanwhile, Ukrainian authorities have repeatedly stated that the responsibility for implementing the Minsk Agreement is vested in Russia, and that it is the Kremlin that can bring an end to its occupation of Ukrainian territory. Pro-Kremlin media announced last week that, according to Ukraine's National Bank, 20% of Ukrainian businesses will be laying off employees in the very near future. Although the source for this claim is Ukraine's National Bank, it is not a National Bank analysis or a forecast. It is simply the result of a recurring poll that the bank conducts on a monthly basis among business leaders and managers. The poll is a feasibility study conducted monthly to determine the level of business activity, which remains relatively high in Ukraine. Furthermore, this data is only for the month of January 2020, and it is in no way an indicator of general future economic activity for Ukraine. But the Kremlin faithful propaganda site Ukraina.ru took the Ukrainian National Bank poll data for January and announced that it was an indicator of future massive layoffs in Ukraine. While some poll respondents did mention possible layoffs, the overall tone of the poll was positive, and the Ukraina.ru spin on the poll completely ignores other important indicators from the survey. In 2019, Ukraine's National Bank introduced a new tool to help the bank rapidly assess and track economic trends and developments, a monthly poll of business expectations and activity. The index is based on surveys of various Ukrainian enterprises that form the basis of Ukraine's economy. Previously, such indicators were collected to assess business growth for the next 12 months, and now the index also concentrates on analyzing the current state of the economic environment. The January 2020 poll was conducted among business managers in the field of industry, construction, retail, and the service sector. Ukraine's National Bank emphasizes that the published data represents results that reflect only the opinions of respondents. The data are not National Bank forecasts, estimates, or predictions. Ukraine's National Bank also points out that the Business Expectation Index for January 2020 fell to 40% from 48.6% in December 2019, and notes that such a reduction is typical for the beginning of the year in Ukraine, as January has a reduced number of working days because of the many holidays celebrated during that month. Now, whatever Ukraina.ru may claim about the dire state of Ukraine's economy and future mass reductions in the workplace, the January 2020 National Bank survey results tell a different story. 75% of poll respondents from the construction sector, 85% of respondents from various trade enterprises, and 68% of respondents from the service industry noted that they expect the number of their employees to remain unchanged for the foreseeable future. Scores of pro-Kremlin media reported essentially true news, but with a fake and manipulative headline. And that headline declared Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky wants foreign troops in Ukraine. President Zelensky was referring to a regular legislative procedure required to admit foreign troops in Ukraine for annual joint military exercises. The legislation does not call for foreign troops to be deployed in Ukraine. At the heart of these fake claims are annual military exercises that take place in Ukraine with the participation of troops from partner countries. President Zelensky introduced a draft law to Parliament to authorize this foreign military participation, marking the legislation as a priority. Ukrainian law requires that legislative permission that allows armed forces from other countries onto Ukrainian territory for exercises has to be renewed annually. This year, Ukraine will host several international military exercises: the U.S.-Ukrainian Rapid Trident 2020 exercises, the Ukrainian-Moldovan South 2020 maneuvers, the Sea Breeze 2020 international exercises, the Ukrainian-Romanian Riverine 2020 military drills, and the Ukrainian-British Warrior Watcher 2020 exercises. The oldest international military drills held in Ukraine are the multinational Sea Breeze exercises, which have been held annually since 1997. The drill is a multinational maritime exercise with land, sea, and air components intended to build combined capability and capacity to ensure maritime regional security and foster stronger friendship among partnering nations. That's it for this week. You can find much more dissected disinformation on our website, StopFake.org. Remember, look out for fakes, and if you spot any disinformation about Ukraine, forward it to us for a truth autopsy. I'm Marko Suprun, and this is StopFake. Thanks for watching.